All right, let's talk about WordPress. It's the platform that powers, nearly half the internet? It's a giant. But underneath all that success, there's a serious battle brewing for its very soul. And honestly, it could change the web as we know it. You see, WordPress is caught in this massive tug of war. On one side, you've got these deep fractures in the community that are really testing its core values, things like trust and representation. And on the other side, it's in a mad dash to define the future of the internet. So the big question is, can it actually fight a war on two fronts and come out on top? So let's dive into those internal struggles first. And look, these aren't just little disagreements. These feel more like cracks forming in the actual foundation of what makes WordPress, WordPress, this global project that's built entirely on volunteer trust and collaboration.
Okay, this chart tells a really powerful story. Check this out. The Asia-Pacific region, they make up 42% of WordPress's core contributors. These are the people actually building the software. But then you look at WordCamp Asia, their own flagship event, and they're only 38% of the speakers. That's not just a small gap, that is a huge miss from their own target of 60%.
And it gets even wilder. The community's own official rulebook, the handbook, recommends that 80% of speakers should be local. 80. So that 38% isn't just missing a target, it's completely flying in the face of the project's own ideals. But it's not just about who gets a voice. Another one of those core values is being put to the test: trust. And just as the community was debating representation, a different kind of problem came to light. And this one was about money.
Now, $734. I know, it might not sound like a life-changing amount of money, but in this context, it's incredibly symbolic. A local WordCamp organizer basically pocketed surplus funds. In a community that runs on pure volunteer effort and trust, an incident like this just sent shockwaves through the whole system. It forced a really tough conversation about accountability.
So the response was to suggest releasing funds in smaller batches to stop this from happening again. Makes sense, right? But then WordPress co-founder Matt Mullenweg pushed back. He argued for keeping what he called default trust. And this, right here, gets to the heart of the dilemma. How do you add more rules and oversight without destroying the very trust the whole community is built on? It's a tough one.
And that whole debate really puts the spotlight on leadership. After a pretty turbulent year, including a very public fight with a major company, co-founder Matt Mullenweg shared some of his thoughts on all the recent controversies.
So when he was asked about all the stress his decisions caused, he didn't back down. He actually called them necessary pruning. But he did apologize to the community members who got caught in the crossfire. So it's his interesting stance of being firm in his actions, while also admitting, there was some collateral damage.
But you know what's maybe the most revealing part? His biggest takeaway from the whole year wasn't even about the community. He said his main lesson was how the US legal system, especially the discovery phase of a lawsuit, can be weaponized just to rack up huge costs. A very pragmatic and kind of stark lesson to learn from a year of community drama.
Okay, so while the leadership is dealing with legal battles and all this internal stuff is happening, a completely different story is being written in the code. Because you have to ask, what is everyone fighting and building for? Well, it turns out WordPress isn't just staring at its own navel. It is sprinting toward an AI-powered future that could totally redefine e-commerce. The big idea here is something they're calling agentic commerce. Now forget everything you know about browsing websites. This is a future where your personal AI assistant literally does the shopping for you. It finds products, it makes the purchase, all on its own. And WooCommerce, the e-commerce heart of WordPress, wants to be the engine that powers this whole new world. So how is this even going to work? Well, first, new protocols will let AI tools talk to and manage a store's products and orders directly. Then, other AI agents, your shopping assistants, will be able to discover those products from anywhere on the internet. And finally, they'll complete the purchase for you, securely on your behalf. You might never even visit the store's website. It's a complete game changer for online retail. So, if that's the tech for the future, who's actually going to build it? And who's going to use it? Well, that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle, connecting with the next generation of web creators. And here's the twist. It's not happening the way you might think. See, on one hand, you've got the official WordPress channels with all their polished corporate brand messaging. But on the other hand, you have these independent YouTube creators who are reaching way, way bigger audiences. And why? Simple. It's authenticity. People are connecting with real individuals sharing their real, genuine experiences with the platform. And these creators, they have a mission. They're making the old school values of open source cool again, especially for Gen Z. They're not talking about lines of code. They're talking about owning your own data, being independent from big tech. And they're pushing for real change, too. Everything from free training at events to getting WordPress taught at universities.
So this brings us right back to the core of it all. WordPress is basically living a double life. It's fighting these internal battles over its identity, its soul. But at the exact same time, it's building this incredibly ambitious technology for the future. And its long-term success, it's going to depend entirely on whether it can fix the internal problems while it's racing toward the external opportunities.
And that really leaves us with one big question. Can a global, decentralized community that's built on trust and goodwill actually heal its own divisions fast enough to win the next era of the internet? The answer to that is going to define not just the future of WordPress, but maybe the future of the open web itself.